Holmes and I both looked through the hole. The prisoner lay with his face towards us in a very deep sleep, breathing slowly and heavily. He was a man of medium height, dressed in a torn coat and a coloured shirt. As Bradstreet had said, he was extremely dirty. One side of his top lip was turned up, so that 3 teeth were showing. He looked like an angry dog. His head was covered almost down to the eyes with very bright red hair.
"He's a beauty, isn't he?"
said Bradstreet.
"He certainly needs a wash,"
Holmes replied.
"I had an idea that he might be dirty, and so I brought this with me."
He took a wet cloth out of his bag.
"What a funny man you are, Mr. Holmes,"
laughed Bradstreet.
"Now, Bradstreet, open that door as quietly as possible, please. All right."
And Bradstreet slipped his big key into the lock, and we all went in very quietly. The sleeping man half turned, and then settled down once more. Holmes stepped quickly over to him and rubbed the cloth firmly across and down his face.
"Let me introduce you," he shouted, "to Mr. Neville St. Clair of Lee in Kent."
The effect of Holmes's cloth was unbelievable. The skin of the man's face seemed to come off like paper, taking the twisted lip with it. Holmes took hold of the untidy red hair and pulled it off too. The ugly beggar had changed into a pale, sad-faced young gentleman with black hair and a smooth skin. He sat up in his bed and rubbed his eyes, looking round sleepily. Then he realized what had just happened, gave a terrible cry, and hid his face.
"Good heavens!"
cried Bradstreet.
"It certainly is the missing man. I recognize him from the photograph."
By now, the prisoner had managed to control himself. "And what," he asked, "am I charged with?"
"With being concerned in the disappearance of Mr. Neville St.
Bradstreet began.
"But of course, you can't be charged with that." "Well, I have been a member of the police force for 27 years, and I have never seen anything like this."
"If I am Neville St. Clair, no crime has been done. It is clear that you are breaking the law by keeping me here."
"No crime has been done," said Holmes, "but you ought to have trusted your wife."
"It was not my wife that I was worried about. It was the children. I didn't want them to be ashamed of their father. And what can I do now?" Sherlock Holmes sat down beside him on the bed and touched his shoulder kindly.
"I advise you to tell everything to Mr. Bradstreet," he said. "It may not be necessary for the case to come into court. Your story will probably never be mentioned in the newspapers. Your children need never find out about it."
St. Clair gave him a grateful look. "I will tell you the whole story,"